What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another video. I know it's hard to see me yet again, but we are going to get the lighting fixed in here probably on the next video, but y'all stay with me, please stay with me. But on this video, with this time we got the FBI doing a raid on the inside job. So y'all don't go nowhere. It's going to be an interesting video. Y'all stay tuned. Alright, you guys, welcome back to another YouTube video. Today we got FBI slams multiple dirty cops linked to sieging and Sinaloa in Florida. Billions recovered. So y'all don't go nowhere. This is going to be very interesting. It's a little bit on the longer side, but we're going to check it out. It's going to be a pretty cool video.
The FBI just slammed multiple dirty cops working with cartels in Florida.
As you're watching this video right now, Lopez was taken into custody yesterday in his uniform.
A local Customs and Border Protection officer is accused of smuggling migrants across the border. Bettis is accused of allowing an undocumented migrant to drive vehicles across the Paso del Norte Bridge several times as part of a smuggling ring.
But here's
How many times do you guys think is several? Put it down below what you think before we continue.
the scary part. These crooked cops aren't acting alone.
I'm going to say at least 20, and I'm probably lowballing the fuck out of it.
They've even roped in their wives and girlfriends, helping make American streets unsafe, all for money. And it's getting worse, because the deeper you dig, the more you realize the cartels aren't just crossing the border, they're crossing into law enforcement itself. Let's break it down. Before his arrest, Sheriff Marcos Lopez had no idea the FBI was on his trail. Agents had been building a racketeering case since 2023, one that accused him of running a $20 million gambling empire across Central Florida. But the story didn't start when he became sheriff. It began in 2019, when Lopez was still a deputy desperate for campaign money. That's when he turned to Krishna, who controlled a network of illegal gaming rooms in Lake County, and then to Kate, a Chinese businesswoman importing gambling machines. Lopez linked them together, forming what prosecutors later called a unique business relationship. And that's when he made his fatal mistake, putting it in writing. Kate, nothing to worry. No matter what the outcome is, when I win, we start our first internet amusement cafe in Osceola County. You'll be safe and not have to worry about anything because I'll be your sheriff. And once he actually won the election, he followed through. The trio opened the Eclipse Social Club in Osceola County. But this wasn't just any building. It had once been the site of a deadly shooting in 2021, where most saw tragedy, Lopez saw profit. And when rival gambling operations got raided, Lopez didn't celebrate justice. He celebrated business. He texted Christian.
That's pretty crazy. The sheriff of the town runs the most hood spot in the place, in the area. That's pretty crazy.
During one raid, call me right away. We did a raid, and I shut down that place. It's ours. A sheriff celebrating taking out his competition so his own illegal casino could thrive. The Eclipse Social Club was filled with slot machines and gambling devices that state officials called completely illegal, and they didn't even bother to hide it.
On the club's TikTok, you can see
crazy.
Eclipse Social Club repeatedly promoting gambling. The social media page calls the establishment a casino with a lot, fish tables and computer games with daily promotions.
But what investigators uncovered next proved this
Gambling? That's not that crazy though.
wasn't just about casinos. It was about cash payoffs and even police badges being handed to criminals. As investigators dug deeper, they realized Marcos Lopez wasn't just skimming profits from slot machines. He was swimming in cartel money. Court documents show Lopez collected between $600,000 and $700,000 in cash, not checks, not wire transfers, but envelopes and briefcases stuffed with bills. Prosecutors say Krishna, the casino kingpin, personally delivered these payoffs in manila envelopes. Sometimes, the drops were so obvious, it looked like a scene out of Narcos. And the texts? They're absolutely damning. In one exchange, Lopez straight up negotiates his own bribe payments, like he's working out a business deal, not protecting a county. Also remember, we made an agreement with Kate to pay me some money for the connection starting December 1st. How are we going to do it? But Lopez wasn't content with cash alone. He used his badge, the one given to him by the people of Florida, to protect and reward his criminal partners. He even handed Krishna an honorary special deputy badge.
Both said Lopez gave the ringleader a deputy badge they found during a raid, and they said he bragged about his friendship with Lopez to everyone else and how Lopez was protecting the illegal organization.
And the corruption went even deeper.
That's where he
when
messed
deputies
up,
in
yo.
Osceola
That's probably where he messed up.
County accidentally rolled up on the Eclipse Social Club, Krishna immediately texted Lopez a photo. Panicked, Lopez's response, calm reassurance, basically telling him he'd be fine because he controlled the sheriff's office itself. At this point, Lopez wasn't a sheriff anymore. He was a cartel partner, using his badge to shield criminals. But then came the betrayal that would bring his empire down, and it came from the inside. Just when Sheriff Lopez thought
See how crooked cops be and we don't even realize it, y'all? That's what most people don't even realize.
he had everything under control, the walls started closing in, and the man holding the wrecking ball, none other than his own business partner, Krishna, the so-called casino kingpin. Facing years in prison, Krishna cut a deal with the feds. He flipped, agreeing to hand over everything: the meetings, the cash drops, the text messages, even the records of how the money flowed.
It's a big fish when it comes because he's running the organization, but at the same time, what the government is really after is the public official, and this
Casino kingpin. Facing years in prison, Krishna cut a deal with the feds. He flipped, agreeing to hand over everything: the meetings, the cash drops, the text messages, even the records of how the money flowed.
it's a big fish when it comes because he's running the organization, but at the same time, what the government is really after is the public official, in this case, Marcos Lopez.
And Krishna's cooperation wasn't just words. He surrendered nearly $1 million in assets, proof that he was feeding investigators the kind of evidence that could bury Lopez. From that moment, Lopez's empire was doomed. The FBI now had a partner on the inside, and prosecutors say the information Krishna provided was devastating.
Krishna done flipped on him. Krishna flipped. Dang, that's crazy, y'all. That's how he got brought down.
Marcos Lopez walked into this federal building this morning, but just minutes later stripped of his gun and his badge, put in handcuffs and read his rights, asking agents
Cartel
what this was
boss.
all about.
Lopez now faced up to 30 years in federal prison.
No one is above the law. No matter if you are the lowliest criminal or a high-profile sheriff, everybody receives the same due process in the criminal justice system.
But the takedown didn't stop with him, because investigators soon discovered that while Lopez sat in a cell, his estranged wife was still keeping the money flowing. With Sheriff Lopez behind bars, investigators expected the empire to collapse. But just weeks later, they realized the money hadn't stopped moving. That's when they turned to his estranged wife, Robin Severance Lopez.
2.5 weeks after Lopez was arrested, his estranged wife was also put in cuffs. The warrant says that Robin Severance Lopez had a cleaning company. Investigators say it was created to collect payments to her husband, and when confronted by investigators about her knowledge of the players, she said no.
On paper, Robin ran a cleaning business, but prosecutors say it was nothing more than a shell company designed to launder cartel profits. Even after Lopez was jailed, Robin continued making deposits into her accounts.
How can they say that? Maybe it was just a home business, you know? It could have just been a home business. That was another way of funneling money. Not funneling money, but you know what I mean, gaining money. So how can they say that?
Deposits investigators tied directly to the Eclipse Social Club and other illegal casinos. When agents confronted Robin, she denied everything. She claimed she had no knowledge of her husband's illegal empire, but the evidence told a very different.
What y'all think? You think she did? Or she didn't? Yeah, let me know.
Story. Investigators uncovered text messages, photos, and bank records that showed Robin not only knew about the operation, she was actively helping to keep it alive. Lopez had used his badge to protect the casinos, Robin had used her business to wash the money. Together, they kept the criminal machine alive, even as the FBI tried to shut it down. But this wasn't just a Florida scandal, because while the Lopez family was laundering cartel cash in Central Florida, federal agents were uncovering another wave of corruption, this time on the US-Mexico border. And what they found there was even more dangerous. While Florida was reeling from a sheriff and his wife turned cartel partners, the FBI was uncovering a different kind of betrayal hundreds of miles away, this time at the US-Mexico border. Here, corruption wasn't about casinos, it was about migrants and cocaine being waved into the United States by the very officers sworn to stop it.
Local Customs and Border Protection officer is accused of smuggling migrants across the border.
The officer was Manuel Perez Jr., a CBP agent in El Paso. Between 2023 and 2025, prosecutors say Perez let vehicles packed.
This is going to tell us how many, I said 20, right? 20 at least. But this is going to tell us how many officers he led across the border. This is going to be the interesting one.
With undocumented migrants pass through checkpoints. No inspections, no questions asked. But that was only half the story. He was also tied to a cocaine trafficking ring that stretched across Texas, Louisiana, and North Carolina. Court records show Perez allowed vehicles driven by migrants to pass through inspection lanes unchecked. He also conspired to move more than 5 kilograms of cocaine across state lines.
Why he is charged with so many different crimes is because it looked like it was ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. And the Department of Justice has an opportunity to make an example of it.
If convicted, Perez faces decades in federal prison. And Perez wasn't the only one. In California, 2 more CBP officers, Jesse Clark Garcia and Diego Bonillo, admitted to working with a Mexican trafficking organization. They used secret emoji codes to signal cartels which lanes to use at the border. In exchange, they let cars packed with fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and meth pass straight into the U.S. Over time, investigators say Garcia and Bonillo allowed more than 1,100 pounds of drugs into the country. And while traffickers got rich, the officers...
So they were allowing the drugs to come through, not just officers. But dang, that's crazy, y'all. So they were allowing the mules and everything to come through. So they were basically cartel members as well. And they were doing that. That's crazy.
Blew their cartel cash on Gucci shopping sprees, luxury vacations, and even horse racing investments. But the rot didn't stop in El Paso or California, because at America's...
Man, horse racing, I love watching horse racing, y'all. I'd love to be able to bet on horse racing. Or at least just go watch it live, you feel me? That'd be so dope.
Busiest border crossing, San Diego, agents uncovered an even bigger bribery ring. San Diego's San Isidro port of entry is the busiest border crossing in America. Millions of travelers pass through every year. But investigators discovered it was also being used by smugglers, with the help of corrupt officers inside Customs and Border Protection. 2 CBP officers, Farlis Almonte and Ricardo Rodriguez, were accused of taking bribes to let dozens of vehicles filled with undocumented migrants cross without inspection. The smugglers didn't sneak past the border. They were waved through, lane after lane, by corrupt officers.
2 San Diego Customs and Border Protections officers arrested for allegedly accepting bribes to allow dozens of vehicles with undocumented passengers to enter the country.
According to prosecutors, the scheme ran for months. Investigators uncovered suspicious bank deposits, text messages with smugglers, and surveillance showing cars packed with extra passengers that were never logged at the checkpoint. When Almonte was arrested, agents seized nearly 7.
They're allowing illegal immigrants to pass through as well. That's another thing they were doing. Probably for a little bit of money.
$1,000 in cash. Prosecutors say it was cartel payoff money. His girlfriend was caught trying to smuggle into Tijuana. Rodriguez's story was just as shocking. He had legally immigrated to the U.S., worked his way up, and earned a federal badge. But prosecutors say he threw it all away for cartel cash.
We want to exercise all of our full due process rights while maintaining, who Ricardo really is. And, he's a guy that, really pulled himself up by his bootstraps.
But investigators weren't buying it. Over a few short months, the two officers pocketed tens of thousands of dollars in bribes while smugglers slipped through the gates of America's busiest border crossing.
Dozens of cars with undocumented immigrants apparently passed through this entry point unchecked by Customs and Border Protection officers.
And it didn't stop with migrants. In August 2023, Officer Garcia was working a pedestrian lane in Tecate when he suddenly switched assignments with another officer. But prosecutors say he threw it all away for cartel cash.
We want to exercise all of our full due process rights while maintaining, who Ricardo really is. And, he's a guy that, really pulled himself up by his bootstraps.
But investigators weren't buying it. Over a few short months, the two officers pocketed tens of thousands of dollars in bribes while smugglers slipped through the gates of America's busiest border crossing.
Dozens of cars with undocumented immigrants apparently passed through this entry point unchecked by Customs and Border Protection officers.
And it didn't stop with migrants. In August 2023, Officer Garcia was working a pedestrian lane in Tecate when he suddenly switched assignments with another officer. Moments later, Garcia waved through a Toyota Camry driven by a woman who, prosecutors say, often crossed in his lane. Garcia ended his shift, got in his car, and headed back towards San Diego on Route 94. Following right behind him, the Camry. At a Border Patrol checkpoint, Garcia was waved through, but the Camry wasn't so lucky. Agents searched it and found 475 pounds of cocaine and nearly 9 pounds of fentanyl inside. The driver later pleaded guilty, admitting her car was packed with drugs when Garcia let her through. Prosecutors said this case was part of a bigger trend. In just the past 2 years, at least 5 CBP officers in the San Diego area have been charged with cartel corruption, but one of them, a former border inspector.
Is that how they got caught? Because why would he be following her? Did I miss something? Why would he be following her?
Officers pocketed tens of thousands of dollars in bribes while smugglers slipped through the gates of America's busiest border crossing.
Dozens of cars with undocumented immigrants apparently passed through this entry point unchecked by Customs and Border Protection officers.
And it didn't stop with migrants. In August 2023, Officer Garcia was working a pedestrian lane in Tecate when he suddenly switched assignments with another officer. Moments later, Garcia waved through a Toyota Camry driven by a woman who, prosecutors say, often crossed in his lane. Garcia ended his shift, got in his car, and headed back towards San Diego on Route 94. Following right behind him, the Camry. At a Border Patrol checkpoint, Garcia was waved through, but the Camry wasn't so lucky. Agents searched it and found 475 pounds of cocaine and nearly 9 pounds of fentanyl inside. The driver later pleaded guilty, admitting her car was packed with drugs when Garcia let her through. Prosecutors said this case was part of a bigger trend. In just the past 2 years, at least 5 CBP officers in the San Diego area have been charged with cartel corruption, but one of them, a former border inspector, received a sentence so severe it sent shockwaves through the agency. His name was Leonard Darnell George, a former border inspector, and unlike others who cut deals, George went to trial. The verdict was guilty, and the sentence stunned everyone: 23 years in federal prison.
A jury found 41-year-old Leonard George guilty on 4 counts. Prosecutors say that he took upwards of $400,000 in bribes and allowed smugglers to bring drugs and undocumented migrants.
So how did they let cops get away with this so long is my question, but the public can't? That's crazy. I don't get that.
Through his inspection lane.
Court records revealed George had accepted cash bribes to waive cars through the San Ysidro port of entry. But these weren't just any cars. They were loaded with undocumented migrants and with drugs, meth, fentanyl, cocaine. He let it all through, and he did it with the power of a federal badge. Prosecutors pushed for the maximum sentence, arguing George's betrayal didn't just undermine border security, it fueled America's overdose crisis. The message was clear. This wasn't just about corruption. It was about lives lost.
It's been a problem that's been endemic to Customs and Border Protection for a long time.
But even George's record sentence didn't stop the corruption, because while San Diego was still reeling, prosecutors launched a new investigation called Operation Valley Takedown. And what they found next was even more brazen. a Border Patrol agent accused of trafficking meth while he was on duty. Just when investigators thought they'd seen the worst, a new case shattered expectations. In June, federal prosecutors announced a sweeping indictment.
So this case, this guy was trafficking meth while on duty, while he had this bad active.
Under Operation Valley Takedown, and among those arrested was a man sworn to protect the border, a U.S. Border Patrol agent named Alexander Bennett Grindley. Prosecutors allege Grindley wasn't just helping the Sinaloa cartel, he was directly trafficking methamphetamine, even while on duty. Think about that. An officer in uniform, trafficking meth during the very hours he was being paid to enforce the law. Prosecutors said Grindley's crimes weren't just corruption.
I guess when they're at the top, you can get away with it because nobody's looking both ways to see what you're doing until you slip up.
They were a direct threat to U.S. security. Corruption undermines the integrity of our border security and poses a grave threat to public safety. Allegations that...
And it's still got to be going on, you guys. I mean, for sure, it's still got to be going on.
That border officials are complicit in fentanyl trafficking are especially troubling. By this point, the pattern was undeniable. In just 2 years, a Florida sheriff, his wife, multiple CBP inspectors, and even on-duty Border Patrol agents had been exposed as cartel allies. So how did Customs and Border Protection respond? With a carefully worded statement.
The alleged actions of these individuals are deeply troubling and do not reflect the values of CBP or the vast majority of our dedicated personnel who serve with integrity every day.
But critics say that explanation, a few bad apples, doesn't hold up anymore. Because when sheriffs, inspectors, and federal officers are repeatedly caught taking cartel cash, it's not the exception, it's the pattern, and a dangerous one. Because every time Border Patrol goes on a hiring spree, corruption follows. Look back at the George W. Bush years. The agency doubled in size, and almost immediately, the arrests skyrocketed. Agents caught stealing, smuggling, even working side by side with organized crime.
The clear reason why this happened is because they lowered the standards in order to achieve the numbers that they were trying to achieve.
Now experts are warning, it's happening again. Expanding fast without stronger oversight is like handing the cartels a golden ticket. Homeland Security insists the hiring process is tough, with background checks and vetting. But when the pressure's on to fill thousands of jobs at lightning speed, critics say standards slip. And that's when the cracks show. The fallout? Cartels raking in billions, fentanyl and meth flooding American streets, communities left to deal with the wreckage, and the question hanging over all of it: if the cartels can buy cops, sheriffs, and even the very Border Patrol agents guarding America's front lines, who's really protecting you?
Yeah, I can see how that could be a bad thing, you guys. Definitely not good sometimes. But what do you guys feel about all that? How should cops get treated if they get caught for doing something like that? Should it be the worst of the worst? Should it be a felony depending on where it happened? What do you all think about all that? Y'all let me know down below. Till next video, I'm out. Peace.